In this MVC Map Suite Edition sample app walkthrough, we're going to show you how you can create a restriction layer to restrict what your user sees on the map. So with this sample here, we've got a basic map of the world, and you can see we've got kind of this gray hatch pattern around here, and we're restricting the user to only see this part of Africa and the Middle East. If we come down here and we switch to the hide zones, we do the inverse here, where you can see the outside of this area. And if we switch back to show zones here, you can see where you can also control how the restricted area looks. So here's a custom style where it's kind of still, you can see it, but it's darker, using some transparency. And then here we've got the little circle with the cross through it, or the Ghostbuster symbol, to show that there's no data in that area. So this can be useful if your application needs to restrict viewable areas to certain parts of the world or parts of your map. And that can become quite handy if you're dealing with security applications or other sensitive information. So let's take a look at the code to show how you would implement something like this. To get started, let's look at the view source. And down here is where we're creating the map to be added to the page, and we're just doing our typical World Map Kit WMS overlay for the base map. And then we create another overlay that's going to contain our restriction layer. So you add the restriction layers to the map just like you would any other layer, like a shapefile feature layer and things of that nature. But the restriction layer, of course, is a little bit different because you're going to add zones to it. So it's not restricted just to one zone. You can add multiple zones. So if you have certain areas that you want to block out that are sensitive, you can add as many zones to that restriction layer that you would like. And then the restriction mode tells the map control whether either to show those zones or hide those zones. So you can do the inverse of each other, which gives you a lot of power to play with how you want to set these restrictions up. Then finally, we're setting the upper scale as to where this restriction resides. So now in this example, we're doing from all the way, pretty much the entire world. But if you want to control it by scale, you can do that as well here. And then finally, we just add that restriction layer to the map and render the map out accordingly. So with that, that's what happens when the map originally loads, and you've got the zone here that's defined for Africa, and you've got the rest of the place blocked out with the hatch pattern. So let's take a look at the code of how you can change the different styles, and you can change the whether you're showing or hiding the zones. And to do that, let's go back here to the view source. And you can see we've got our HTML list box and our radio buttons defined here. And whenever the user clicks on that, we're going to call the change restriction style on the list box and the show or hide zones JavaScript on the radio button. And here's our JavaScript block. And let's take a look at how this is all structured. So change the restriction style is going to do an AJAX callback and call the set restricted style method, pass in the style that we selected, and then do a callback. And the callback here, we're basically just redrawing the map so it gets updated on the client side. The show or hide zones JavaScript function is very similar. It's also going to do an AJAX callback, except it's going to call the show zones method on the server or the hide zones method on the server, depending upon which radio button selection was made. And then on that callback, it will also refresh the map. So let's go take a look at the server-side code so we can see what's happening in those different methods. So in our set restriction style here, this first part's just getting our reference to our overlay and the restriction layer that we set up when the map was loaded. And then we're going to clear out the styles, because we're going to then build the brand new one down here. And here you can see we've just got a standard switch or case statement. And if we used hatch pattern was passed in, we're going to use the restriction style of hatch pattern. If circle was slash image, we're going to use that restriction style. So we've got some built-in styles available for you that you can use for common types of restriction. But the cool thing is if you want to use your own custom style, you don't like the ones that we have pre-built, you're free to do that or whatever you need to for your own application by using a custom style. And with that, really all you do is create a new area style of how you would like it to look, and then add that to the custom styles collection off of the restriction area. So this is where we're doing our semi-transparent one, and just doing a slight gray see-through style, so it gives that effect of the darker color outside of the zones. So really the sky's the limit on how you want your restriction area to look like, or your restriction zones I should say. And then the last bit is just down here where we have our show zones and hide zones method. And really everything we're doing in here is just again getting the reference to the overlay and the restriction layer and just modifying the restriction mode property to say whether we want to show it or we want to hide the zones. So as you can see, there's an inverse relationship between those two, and that gives you complete control over how you want to set up your zones and how they can be displayed. I hope this sample app walkthrough has been helpful. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us, or you can post them directly on our discussion forums at thinkgeo.com/forums. Thank you for watching.